This is question 2, and it's the Argand diagram question. We need to figure out what Z1, Z2 and Z3. So the real, if we look at Z1, it's up here, the real value is 4 and the imaginary value is 3, so it's just going to be 4 plus 3i. We go across the 4 up to 3, so 4 plus 3i. Z2 then, well, it's on the imaginary axis, so it doesn't really have a real value, or the real value is 0. The imaginary value then goes up to 2 on the imaginary axis, so plus 2i, or you could just put in 2i by itself there. Z3 then, we have to go across to minus 2 on the real axis and then down to minus 1, so minus 2 minus 1i, or you could just say minus 2 minus I. Right, second part we have to find, that's called the modulus. The two lines down the side of it are the modulus. So for Z2, so Z2 is 0 plus 2i. Right, so to get the modulus of a number, we're going to do its square root, and we're just going to take each of the parts, so the 0, and we're going to square it, and we're going to take the 2 and we're going to square it, and we add them together. And that's how we get the modulus. So 0 squared is 0. You can plot it into the calculator, or you might be able to see what you're going to end up getting is 2, because 2 squared is 4, and the square of that is 2. Answer there. So modulus is always square root a squared plus b squared, where the complex number is a plus bi. So 2 there. This part then, when we have a fraction like that, we always know we're going to be rationalizing the denominator. So what you need to do here is you need to take the conjugate of the bottom. The bottom here is 1 plus 2i. So the conjugate of that is 1 minus 2i. What we multiply top and bottom by the conjugate, so the 1 minus 2i. So I've taken 15 and I put it over 1 plus 2i, that's the question. So now I'm going to multiply by 1 minus 2i over 1 minus 2i. The top bit will just be 15 times 1 2i. Bottom part will be double brackets, so 1 plus 2i, 1 minus 2i. Then top part, you're just multiplying the 15 in, so you get 15 minus 30i. The bottom, I'm gonna multiply. There's different ways of multiplying out double brackets, so do it whatever way you know. But I'm going to do everything by everything. So I'm going to do the 1 multiplied by the 1 first. So that gives me 1. Then I'm going to do 1 multiplied by minus 2i. So that gives me minus 2i. Then I'm going to do 2i multiplied by 1. So that gives me plus 2i. And the last part, I'm multiplying the last two parts together. So 2i multiplied by minus 2i. That gives me minus 4i squared. Now, one of the main rules for complex numbers is that I squared always equals minus 1. Anytime we see an I squared in this question, we can replace it with a minus 1. So if I replace that I squared there with a minus 1, it will be minus 1 multiplied by minus 4, and that will give me plus 4 on the bottom. So on the top we get 15 minus 30i. On the bottom, the two middle ones cancel out. That always happens when you rationalize the denominator. So I'll get 1 plus 4, because remember, the minus 4i squared turns into a positive 4 because I squared becomes minus 1. Right, so we get 15 minus 30i. And on the bottom we have 5. And last thing, I can divide the 5 into both of those, so 15 divided by 5 is 3, minus I divided by 5 will be minus 6I. And that's all for that. Last part, so the complex number 1 plus 2I is shown on the Argand diagram below. Yeah, so it's here obviously. So that's where 1 plus 2I is. And it makes sense anyway. The three complex numbers A, B and C are shown in the diagram. One of these is W conjugate, the complex conjugate of W. So like I said in the last part, conjugate is just where you change the sign in the middle. So this one here is 1 plus 2I. We need to see which one of them then the conjugate, so W conjugate then has to be 1 minus 2I. We have to see which one of those would be 1 minus 2I. So 1 minus 2I is where you go across 1 and then down to minus 2I. It has to be C. Obviously, if you think about it, so C. And then reason because it's reflected about the real axis. Might be a real, or that might be the actual one that they want, but what you could say, you could just say that what I wrote up there, that W conjugate is equal to 1 minus 2I. That's showing that you know what it is, and you have the right answer there as well. So that's all for that question.